Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to you. This is our first program of the new year. That's very auspicious, and we're going to be starting in on a new subject. So let's start with a prayer, and then we'll go on. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master Paramahansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, humbly we bow to you all. Dear friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, bless us with insight into your written words, that we may feel behind them your consciousness, your wisdom, your love, and your joy. We are your children. Let this coming year be a time of ever-expanding bliss within us and ever greater freedom in thee. Om, peace. Amen. Today is Monday, and on Monday I always talk about money and ask and those of you who might feel inspired by the work that we're doing, which we've now called the Mission of the Masters, you can support us by signing up through the Patreon website, which is a wonderful subscription service for helping all kinds of creative people, to do their work with the support of those who have the resources to make it happen for them. It's been a wonderful support for the Mission of the Masters. You can also go to my website, Ananda Joy, and donate intermittently if you wish to through through links that you'll find there. I was reflecting also, just because of the nature of my life, I've never really, let me think how to say this, I've never really been responsible for having to just keep track of finances. It's always been done for me, and I've just been able to do what I'm good at. And in the last few years, I've been asked to step into the world of money a little more practically, or a little more hands-on is how I would put it, than I've done before. And I've been very, very grateful for the opportunity, and all of this, excuse me, all of this participation from so many of you in the work that I'm doing, and making me have to think more clearly about energy given, energy received. It's been a great blessing to me, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity that your support has given me to just sort of link a lot of principles together. We're all here to learn, and I'm always glad when I get to learn something new. So now, oh, there it is. There's my notebook. I thought I forgot it. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through Ananda's Festival of Light, the Festival of Light, which is a ritual that in the Ananda temples in the USA and in Europe, we do every Sunday at our satsang. In India, they use it less frequently. It's still a part of the work that we do there, but not quite as central as it is in America and in Europe, although perhaps over time things will shift in India. And it is one of a few ceremonies that Swami Kriyananda created for us. And at least to my experience, he created this at the end of 1986. So from 1987 to the present moment, like yesterday, it's been always presented as part of our Sunday morning worship service. And as I'll explain, the inspiration for it and the words themselves were, like everything Swami does, given to him. And over my 30 years of weekly, at least weekly, participation in this, I've developed a profound appreciation, both for this degree of ritual and also literally for the concepts that are here. And often when I am the one presenting the Festival of Light, I have a strong inclination to interrupt the ritual to give a little mini satsang about what this phrase means or what that phrase means, or I want people to stop and really appreciate what was just said. So I'm going to get to indulge all of that, and it will take us a while. For those of you who watch this regularly or who are perhaps less steeped in the Ananda way of life but are interested, this is and I just want to say, this is a question that I'm always having to deal with, because one part of me wishes to speak to the deeply dedicated lifelong devotees of Ananda to help us all to go step by step deeper into what we're doing. And as I talk about, in a general way, what the purpose and benefit of the Festival of Light is, that's part of it, is that once you put your foot on this path, plant your feet on this path, once you learn to meditate, perhaps become a disciple, perhaps take Kriya initiation, the potential for enlightenment is there, but it's never automatic. It's always a question of constantly re-energizing our commitment, finding new and deeper ways to explore consciousness. So I have a great affection for facilitating that experience. And on the other hand, I've always had both an interest and seemingly a bit of a knack for bringing people who are more or less new to the path to help them to understand what we're doing. So every time I make a choice about what topic to go to next, I'm always having to balance both these realities. And my sincere expectation and hope is what Swami Kriyananda said to me: the more central a truth, meaning the more it comes, the deeper and more seminal an idea, the more it can be applied in countless ways. So even if something may seem to come from perhaps a level of commitment that you are still considering, or not even considering, but are simply intrigued by, I'm hoping that any central truth that's described will also activate in you some expanding awareness, because it's all a very simple question. It's a question of expansion versus contraction. And every decision that we make in life, every decision, either reflects a desire, an effort to achieve greater awareness, or a desire to stay as we are, which is really just the same as choosing a contractive awareness. Because the force of our higher nature is always toward greater awareness. And the force of our less elevated nature is to try to avoid that. And so every choice that we have in life, you can have an enormous spiritual philosophy all around you, and God knows, and probably all of you do too, because you listen to me. I delight in the endless ramifications of even the simplest statements of Master and of Swamiji. So it's not as if that is not a worthwhile pursuit, but it all comes down, the enormous complexity of it comes down to very, very simple principle. Either I'm choosing to live in such a way as to ever expand my awareness, or I'm trying to freeze in place, and since nothing in the world ever stays the same, if we're not cooperating with expansion, that very lack of cooperation is contractive. And when you get your own life down to always just a little more energy, a little more courage, a little more expansiveness, if we just make that decision, just on the smallest level, even like, shall I leave the dishes in the sink tonight, or shall I put out a little more energy to wash them before I go to bed? And maybe I can't quite wash them, but at least I'll rinse them. So they'll be more pleasant when I get there in the morning. It doesn't have to be a Mount Everest of expansion. It's just always keeping our attention in the right direction. I remember once Swamiji was traveling to Europe, and he was passing through London, and this was like maybe in the 1970s. I say this because we have devotees in London, and I don't think any of the ones that are with us now were the people I'm talking about. That suddenly crossed my mind. I'm not casting aspersions on anyone we know. But I was always very protective of Swamiji to a fault. He would correct me because I was willing sometimes to sacrifice the well-being of others for his well-being, which he said was a natural feeling on my part, but it did not represent his feeling. And if I was going to represent him, I needed to follow his values, not my own prejudices. So anyway, he was on his way to Europe. He had an overnight stay in London. Whenever Swami would move from one country to another, which he did continuously over his lifetime, the finishing the business where he had been always took a tremendous amount of energy, and we'd essentially pour him onto the plane. He'd have the plane flight to recover, and then rarely, every once in a while, he'd have an overnight somewhere before he got to where he was going in the new lecture series and whatever else it would. So he had this overnight in London. But there was someone in London that he knew who would be very happy to hear from him, and conceivably even would be hurt if they had known that Swami had come through London and hadn't contacted them. I wanted Swami to take a night off and get some rest. And a part of Swami also wanted to take a night off and get some rest. And those were the days of the telephone, the big telephone where you would dial numbers like that. And we were sitting in front of the phone trying to finalize what he would do, what his plan would be, whether I would write a letter, whether he would write a letter, etc. And Swami kept sort of reaching out his hand. He was just going to dial the London number because it was the right time of the day, or not. And he kept sort of reaching for the phone, not, reaching for the phone, not. I finally said, Swamiji, I feel like you're trying to decide whether it will be more effort to reach out and have an evening with your friends there, or whether it would be easier to reincarnate so that you'll have to do it again next lifetime because you've made the contractive choice. And he said, exactly. And he picked up the phone and dialed the number, made the date, had a wonderful evening. Everything just worked out perfectly fine. But even for him, expansive versus contractive. Expansive was to take the opportunity to give a little more. Contractive was to say, oh, I think I'll take care of myself. Now, it's not that one should die in the effort, and this wasn't a life or death matter. This was entirely just personal comfort, personal preference, which Swami just, when he really confronted it, just tossed aside and was very happy to serve. But this is what we're always working with. Now, this is a long, irrelevant introduction to the ritual of the Festival of Light, but here we go. When Ananda started, Swamiji had certain ways of doing things. Well, actually, let me phrase it differently. Everything that Swami wanted us to do was based on the experience he'd had with Master. He read Autobiography of a Yogi in 1948. Within a week, he had gone from New York City to Los Angeles, California. He had met Master, who was living in Los Angeles at that time. Within a half an hour of meeting him, he had been initiated as a disciple, accepted as a monk, and had received Master's extraordinary promise of unconditional love. And from that point, Swami was 22 years old. It was 1948, September 12th. From that point until his last breath, Swami lived to serve Master. And everything he did when Master died 3.5 years after that meeting. So Swamiji had a very, very short period with Master. He was 25 years old when Master died. And Swami was 86 when he died. So there was a lot of time afterwards. But everything that Swamiji did, he always tried to feel what would Master do. And it wasn't only what did Master do, but what would Master do. And that distinction is exceedingly important. The way Swamiji described the way Yogananda worked was that he had a completely clear sense of the vibration that was consistent with the commission that Master had received from Babaji. And Babaji in Christ is how Master described the origin point of this line of teaching. Jesus appeared to the great Master Babaji, which is actually part of the Festival of Light, that phrase. And when we get to that, we'll talk about it more. But Jesus appeared to the great Master Babaji, and together, as says in the autobiography of a yogi, Babaji and Jesus have planned the spiritual salvation of this age. And that plan included the sending from east to west of a divinely qualified messenger, which was Paramahansa Yogananda, to bring the ancient teachings of India into the modern world, into the rising yuga, from Kali Yuga into Dwapara, from the age of matter into the age of energy, and to bring a unity between East and West. And Master's explicit commission was to teach the original teachings of Krishna, the original teachings of Jesus, and show that they were the same. That self-realization, individual self-realization, is the unifying principle behind Krishna, Jesus, and all the true teachings of the avatars through the ages. So Master had, because of course he was an avatar, he had a crystal clear idea of the vibration that would facilitate this commission. You know, what he was here to do. Ancient teachings, underlying truth, self-realization is the unifying principle, East and West uniting. Now that is a very, from the top perspective, that's a very big panorama of possibilities. So then Master comes to America, eventually settles in Los Angeles, develops Self-Realization Fellowship, all the writing he did, the teaching, and it was enormously varied what Master did. And when we have this email that comes out every day, and it's called Today in the Life of Paramahansa Yogananda, or something close to that. If you don't receive that, you can write to ananda.org and just be put on that list. And a great deal of research was done by friends of ours, and as much as possible, it'll go 1925, 1937, 1940, 1942. On this date, in that year, this is what Yogananda was doing. And my, it gives you such an interesting perspective on how Master lived. In one date, he was in Cleveland talking to a women's club. On another date, he was in New York City talking to financiers. On this day, he's giving a concert of Indian music. Here, he's teaching about how to have a successful marriage. Here, he's teaching about how to regenerate amputated limbs. And one of my favorites is, how to heal by superconscious power. He was called Swami Yogananda until 1935. Swami Yogananda will teach how to heal by superconscious means, and then parentheses, bring your sick friends. It says. Now, it wasn't that Master was there to teach healing and to heal your sick friends. It wasn't that he was there to talk to people about how to have successful marriages. It wasn't that he was there to talk to financiers about money, magnetism, per se. It was that he was there to uplift this expansive versus contractive. Wherever anyone is standing, whatever they're involved in, there's going to be an expansive way to approach it and a contractive way to approach it. So Master went anywhere where he felt he could give that essential vibration and then help lift people's consciousness, raise them to a higher level of understanding. And so the way Swamiji ended up describing it, because Master also said about his work in the world that there is, quote, a blueprint for the work. And there have been, since Master's passing, which is now, he died in 1952, so we're now like, what is it, 70 years, since his passing, that individuals with a sincere desire to serve, but we all have our own particular lens through which we see the world. People have interpreted Yogananda's life and his words in very different ways. That's why whenever I and many of us from Ananda teach about self-realization, I always have to emphasize that my understanding comes through Swami, because there are other very noble, highly respected, advanced disciples, but they see it through their lens. And Swami Kriyananda's lens is the lens that looks clear to me. It's karma, it's the way things are, it's affinities, it's lots of different things you could say, but we are Master's teachings through Swami Kriyananda. And there are significant disagreements about this. Some have taken the blueprint for Yogananda's work to be literally like an architectural drawing, which is when you have an architectural drawing, you have to build it according to that drawing because it's engineered to match, and you need to know, in a comprehensive effort, you need to know how everything fits together. You need to have a doorway into the kitchen. You can't just build the kitchen and then discover that there's no doorway into it. You have to follow it in order for it to come out right. Swamiji finds that definition of how Master's work, what Master even intended when he said that. He says that doesn't conform to Master Swamiji's experience of Master or his own understanding about how to serve this mission of the Masters. And he said the blueprint is not like we think of it in a material plane. He said the blueprint is a vibration of energy. And it is written in the ether. There's a powerful, specific vibration, which is the consciousness of the Masters being projected to us. And certain things are in tune with that vibration, and other things are not. In 1987, on January 4th of 1987, which is not today, but is tomorrow, actually, is the anniversary of the day that I moved from Ananda Village to Ananda Palo Alto, where I've been for, well, this will be like my 36th year, I think I'll be completing here. Do I have the math correct? My 35th year. Okay. Let's see now, just a second, I lost the thought. Let me find it for a moment. Oh, yes. So for my first 16 years, I lived at Ananda Village, where at that time Swami was in continuous residence. He traveled, but he lived only at the village. Later, he lived at Ananda Village, Ananda Sisi, and also Ananda India in various places. But at that time, he was constantly in residence. I was constantly in residence. And even though I was traveling a lot in the U.S., especially the West Coast during that time, I was still in physical proximity to him. And then, boom, I was kicked out of the nest, would be a way to put it. And ever since then, I've not lived in that kind of proximity to Swamiji, even though I've been in constant touch with him. All of this is to say, I had to begin to experience my own capacity at a distance to feel what that vibratory blueprint was. And the way I would feel that vibratory blueprint was through attunement with Swamiji, who was consciously working with me. And the fact that I was in touch with him through email and telephone and visits and so on, but there was a wholly different level going on that had always been going on, but it became more dramatically apparent to me when I was living at a distance and trying to create something that wasn't there yet. To feel what was going to be consistent with that blueprint, because merely because it's vibratory and not on paper doesn't mean it's any less exact, because you still don't want to end up with a kitchen that doesn't have a doorway into it. You have to, everything has to work together. And it is very, let me think, the word exact is not exactly true, but the vibration is very accessible and recognizable. And after a couple of years of this effort here, I really just deeply and profoundly appreciated how strong that etheric vibration was, and how powerfully Swamiji was projecting it, projecting Master's vision. And because he's been my link, I could just feel it. I could just tell. And so this is how Swami himself, of course this is how Swami worked, this is how he says, it's not just what did Master do. What did Master do in 1940 in Los Angeles, California, building SRF? It would be what would Master do in 1989 in Mountain View, California, trying to build an Ananda Center in this environment. Even just little things. Like I remember when I was beginning to travel at the beginning of the 1980s, and I said to Swamiji that the most popular class I could give was on the chakras. And Swami said, really? Just like that. Not because the chakras were an incredibly important subject. Master didn't even use the word chakra. He called them the spiritual centers. I didn't have to call them spiritual centers. I called them chakras because by 1980, that word had come into the English language, and now, quote, everybody knows what a chakra is. But Swami said, really? He said, when I was teaching in public, I could never have done that because people weren't ready or people didn't understand. So you talked about being a successful businessman and various other things, which we still talk about, but time has passed and things have changed. And Swami was completely supportive because it was exactly what Master would have done if he had been there in 1987 coming to Palo Alto to talk. So Swami's question always, not what did he do, but what would he do? And then he described Master's way of working was this. Master had a crystal clear sense of the vibration, and he responded, Master responded to every opportunity that was in tune with that vibration. And then he would see whether that opportunity would come to fruition or not. Such a perfect way to think about it. And when you go back into the old SRF magazines, which was called East-West Magazine at that time, that Master himself started, when he was starting the organization, he started this magazine. And I've had old copies of that magazine in my hands from the 30s and from the 40s. And you turn the pages of this little magazine, there are lots of little ads. You can get papayas, you can buy flowers, you can get goat milk, you can get carrot juice, you can get, my absolute favorite, you can buy this little thing that's called the Temple of Silence, which is a headband with earplugs, and then coming across the top, like this, in front of you, there's a star. And so the Temple of Silence, you put it on to meditate, and the earplugs close it, and then if you open your eyes, you can see the star, which represents the white star of the spiritual eye that you see internally. But what's fun, when you really begin to look at it, these are all Master's enterprises. These are not like he solicited advertising or somewhere. These are all the different opportunities that Master was following through because they were in tune with the essential vibration. And most of them did not endure. But what they represented is not only that Master approved of carrot juice and goat milk, but what they represented was his entrepreneurial spirit, the creative application of the teachings, the bringing down to a practical level anything that was generally in tune with the vibration. So when Swamiji innovated and did things that Master had never done before, it did not mean that Master would not have done it if he had been here and he'd been faced with the same choices and the same opportunities. So That's our beginning. Tomorrow we'll continue. God bless you.